Government Minister Mark Field has faced 24 hours of criticism for the way he dealt with a protester who interrupted the Chancellor's Mansion House speech.
He's been suspended from his role at the Foreign Office after apologising for grabbing the female activist during the black tie event. Mr Field has had very little public support, so does that mean protesters have the right to disrupt any event they choose? Well, let's speak to the author Ella Whelan, who joins us now. Good morning to you. What did you make of the incident?
How to put it? I think there's been a huge amount of fuss over something that, for me, I think was pretty clear-cut in terms of there was a protest. It seems like quite an effective protest. There was quite a few Greenpeace activists at the dinner with sashes. For me, they look quite visible. I'm not sure why they weren't stopped beforehand, but it was all going well. An activist, a protester, went up behind Mark Field and presumably was going to hand him a leaflet or something, and he overreacted. I mean, it's quite clear that he was really quite forceful. He grabbed her by the neck, and I think most people watching that would have thought, "Ooh, that looked like it hurt a little bit. He got roughed up." But the important thing is, that is what happens when you do a protest. That's what happens when you are a protester. And I have been in situations like that before, both acting out a protest and expecting to be either, grabbed by the arm, grabbed by something and roughed up and shoved out of there. I've also had to take people out of meetings and take people out of scenarios who've been trying to disrupt. So there's been a huge amount of disingenuous around this. Especially in relation to the fact that Janet Barker is a woman. I mean, I've been most shocked, actually, by the kind of patronising discussion around the fact that, how dare a man lay hands on a woman? I mean, that's not treating women equally. If you are a female Greenpeace activist, Greenpeace have got some guts. I might disagree with their politics, but they scale buildings, they doorstep people, they do all these things. And she will have been prepped well for the eventuality of being taken out of there, possibly quite forcibly. So my response to this is just, can everyone calm down and admit that this wasn't the big deal it's being made out to be?
So you think this would have been dealt with completely differently had it been a male protester?
Well, I was looking at social media to try and get a temperature check for what people were saying about this, and one person said, well, if he was a 17-stone man, Mark Field might have stayed eating his soup rather than trying to pin him against a marble wall, and there might be some truth in that, but I think yes, it would have been treated differently if it was a man, and that tells you a lot about the kind of quite dangerous narrative around women at the moment, because she should be treated like any other protester, and I'm actually probably sure that she would want to be treated as equally as her male counterparts, and that means that you get the same treatment as a man would, and you expect to be roughed up and taken out of a meeting if you're trying to disrupt it. So, I think if this was a guy and it had been the same situation, we would be having a different conversation. And rather than that saying a lot about Mark Field, I mean, we've had actually really quite shocking things, like women's charities now coming out and saying that anyone who criticises the reaction about saying, well, there's someone like me saying, hang on a minute, that you're somehow enabling abuse against women. I mean, the whole thing is actually a bit twisted. I think, again, we just need to sort of be realistic and say she's lived to see another day. She's probably going to be emboldened to go on another protest. I hope she is, because this is the kind of thing that happens if you're an activist. And can we just relax about it? Yeah. Don't suspend him, don't investigate him, don't put him in jail. This is just what happens.
And the protester herself has decided not to pursue any course of action. Does it mean, though, that protesters have a right to disrupt any event at any time of their choosing?
Well, this is a really interesting question, and it's one that I think has come up a lot in relation to Extinction Rebellion in the past, and the kind of that we've been seeing a lot more direct action from environmentalists. A lot of it which makes my eyes roll because a lot of it's pretty silly. But no, you have a right to protest. I think we should defend that right to protest. And one of the worrying things has been the discussion from some MPs defending Mark Field, who are saying, we must absolutely ban any kind of protest of this kind. In the wake of Jo Cox, they keep invoking Jo Cox. There's threats against MPs, and that means that we need to protect them. No, we live in a society which means that a free society, which still at this point you can protest your elected representatives, and I think that's very important to protect.
But at the same time, we do still need to protect our politicians.
Well, the right thing is an interesting thing. So you don't have a right to pretend to be someone else and break into a private dinner and expect no one to touch you. No, you're breaking the law. And as a protester, sometimes you do decide that it's necessary for you to break the law, and that's a decision you take, and you have to deal with the consequences. So let's not pretend that we don't know what protest involves. But I think the dangerous thing about protecting our MPs, while it's important that no one gets hurt, I think there's a credible argument to be made that Mark Field thought that perhaps someone was going to get hurt. I don't think you can just sort of poo-poo that away. The thing that most worries me is the suggestion that we now have to insulate our MPs from the to and fro of public life, and that's not kind of diminishing the kind of free-bra political nature we're in at the moment, political context we're in at the moment. But if MPs do not accept that they need to be accountable to the public, whether that be, aggressive words on the side of the street, shouting, heckling, being handed a leaflet, being protested, that's not good. So on both sides, I think people need to really take it down, calm down, and stop pretending like this is, some monumental issue.
Ella, thank you very much for sharing your views with us this morning. Ella Whelan there.